Hello, everyone. This is Candice Dickens, Dope Black Therapist. And today we have an amazing guest, not even a special guest, amazing guest who's kicking off our Community Healers program. This is Miss Galanda Brooker. Now, this woman is a triple threat. A triple. She's a yogi teacher. She is a Reiki master.
Mhm.
She's and the owner of Emotional Awareness Coach. She's an emotional awareness coach
Yes,
and
ma'am.
an author. So
I
she
am.
is amazing. So I am honored to be in your presence and thank you for being with us for my this is my first community healer special.
Oh, I'm so honored to be able to be in your inaugural session of Community Health Healers. I just so appreciate that you even thought of me to come on and share with your audience today.
Yes. I chose you to start us off because you have so many gifts. And there are people who come to you, to be restored
Mhm.
because to be in balance. And they're
Yes,
coming to you because of the fact that not everybody wants to go to a clinician, right?
correct.
Not everybody
Mhm.
wants to go to the pastor, but people
Mhm.
want to go to someone who has good energy that's
Mhm.
also relatable.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me how you got into this work and tell me about the people that you service.
Sure. So, interesting enough, I got into this work from helping out a young man at what was my full-time career in IT.
Hmm.
And there was a young adult man that was on my job that was having some growing pains, we'll call it, right? Just having some challenges kind of moving through the space of adulting, moving through the space of communicating with his parents as an adult. And so I was talking to him, every day and advising him and helping him kind of move through this process. And as I moved through that process, I'm like, this feels good. And I started to do research to learn that coaching was a thing. I didn't even know that that was a thing.
Yes.
Um, and what I equate coaching to, even though I do appreciate that there are some regulations and rules around it, coaching to me in my mind is like that auntie or that uncle that you didn't have, right? The person that kind of helps you, give you advice, helps
Hmm.
you talk through and work through some things. So I did a lot of research, went through a lot of different avenues to learn more about coaching. There's a few things here and there, and ultimately found that one of the universities that I work at, Anne Arundel Community College, they had a program for employees through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation,
Wow.
where you could get trained according to you know, their um, their format, right? And so
Hmm.
I went through, I think it was 90 hours of training with them to for ICF coaching. And I was like, you know what? This is for me. In addition to that, and so all of this was kind of like back to back. That was kind of like 2017. And then like in 2019, I came to yoga. Yoga changed my life. I'm just going to let y'all know yoga changed my life. And part of my yoga training also included some coach training. So between kind of me doing my own research, being trained, through that official capacity, being
Yes.
trained as part of my yoga teacher training is how I came to the process of saying, you know what? This is something that I feel led to do. This is something that I can feel I can be of support to
Yes.
others to do.
So this
And
was your
so
calling.
I believe it is. I wouldn't have thought it. I mean, I do teach higher ed, so I'm accustomed to kind of talking to people.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is coaching is more about listening than talking. And it has been shared with me that I'm a pretty good listener, right? Like not even something that I had thought about
Yes.
previously,
Hmm.
but listening attentively is, a key part of being a coach. And I enjoy it. I enjoy giving my full attention to people
Hmm.
and then helping them untangle, right? Like that ball of yarn that is their thoughts when they're trying to move through a situation. Um, in a way, I'm sort of a transformation coach, even though I don't brand myself as such, because I focus on a person understanding their emotions and their emotional responses and their resiliency. But often, the larger picture of that is that they're going through some sort of transformation, and that those emotions that they're trying to learn to understand, and then make some choices about, are in response to some situation.
Wow. As you were talking, it made me think about COVID. There were so
Absolutely.
many people who became transformed,
Mhm,
where they had an idea about a business they wanted to start or an
mhm,
idea that they didn't quite know how to get it started. And I'm
mhm.
wondering if you found a lot of clients during COVID, people who wanted to start over again.
So, I would say that I supported just people that I knew during COVID. I didn't really look for nor find a lot of new clients during
Right.
COVID, but the people that I already knew, I offered support to them. So, I offered, meditations for people.
Mhm.
I offered private yoga sessions during that period, and I offered distance Reiki because we weren't, allowed to be in the
Yeah.
presence of people during that time. So during the COVID period, I really just concentrated on the network of people that I was already connected to and supporting them through that process. It's really interesting, like you said, that people felt a lot of transformation during COVID. And for me, as I look in hindsight, COVID was kind of like a rest and reset period for me. I personally didn't feel a lot of anxiety or anxiousness. And I am clear that I'm sure that my yoga training had a lot to do with that. Um, but I knew it was important for me to be available for the people that I was connected to give them the support that they need for those who were feeling those types of feelings.
Right. It's what I love is that you've combined your passion for yoga
Mhm.
and your love of helping people transform and unfold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, I like to tell people, you know, at least in the Western world, AKA the United States, when
Right.
people think of yoga, they're thinking of, oh, so that means you're flexible, that means you're bendy, and the physical part of it. And
Right.
I like to be clear, I do practice physical yoga poses, but I am a more philosophical
Yeah.
yoga person, right? Like the things that I share with people have more to do with yoga philosophy as opposed to the physical.
Yeah.
Does the physical support that? Absolutely. But everybody don't want to get on a mat. Everybody's not physically able to get
Hmm.
on the mat. And the things that help you mentally and emotionally in your everyday life are not on the mat. Can the mat help you?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the principles behind yoga are what I use as my own foundation and I use as a guide for when I'm helping other people, right? That's really what I'm using as my guide.
I love that.
Mhm.
I share with you, I'm going through my own yoga training.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we talk about is yoga is about liberation.
Absolutely.
And it's about,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's about the liberation of you from suffering, from pain, from
Mhm.
anxiety, from relationships that don't
Mhm.
honor you. It's from anything that blocks your energy.
Absolutely.
And only a small part is the physical part, the poses.
Mhm.
The other part is about the ethics and the principles and the standards and how well you treat yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the part that I tap into. Do I incorporate physical yoga practice? I do. Uh, but when I do, it's usually very gentle yoga. I have a teacher that I follow, subtle yoga with Christine Weber. I followed her for years, and her practices are supportive of the type of emotional and mental practices that I try to share with people. So I've learned a lot from her, and I've incorporated what I've learned from her, as well as other programs to help people in their emotional and mental wellness, because
I love
that's what
that.
we got to deal with when we wake up and walk around every day with,
Yes. Yes. And ensuring that balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you incorporate Reiki in that? And can you explain to people who don't know what that is, what Reiki is?
Sure. So Reiki is a Japanese, well, historically Japanese practice, which is energy healing. It is not limited to people who are Japanese. It is not limited to any sort of people. Anybody can practice Reiki. However, it's important that as part of Reiki, you have some training and lineage so that you can understand that you are a conduit for
Right,
the energy. You are not the energy, you are not healing people,
right.
but you are a conduit. And what being a conduit means in terms of taking care of yourself, protecting yourself, and how you work with other people. So Reiki is a type of energy healing. For some practitioners, they do touch people. If people allow me to, I do touch them, but it is not necessary to touch a person in order to get the benefits of Reiki. Oftentimes people use Reiki to, if they're feeling kind of like off balance, they feel
Mhm.
like there's some area of their life or maybe all over in their life that they need to get back in alignment. And a regular Reiki practice can help people energetically move that. And I'm just the facilitator, right? The same way as me as the meditation teacher or the yoga teacher,
Mhm.
I am the facilitator of the knowledge. All of the power is within the recipient. I'm just
Mm.
here to help walk with you, walk beside you. And if you need a little guidance, guide you to what you need to help you feel whole and feel like you can um, move with more confidence in your emotional and mental wellness.
Well, I love that. So
Mm.
you are the guide.
Yes, I feel like I'm a guide.
But
Yes.
yeah, but the journey belongs to them.
The journey belongs to them. Um, you as a therapist, I'm sure that you share with people the time that they spend with you, you get through some things, but
Yeah.
the enlightenment or the
Mhm.
realization or the practice comes outside
Yep.
of the actual appointment, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like you get 10 to 20% of the benefits when you're in front of me, but the majority of the benefits comes at some point later.
Yes.
And that's part of the integration, which I stress to people that it's almost like you're planting the seed, but you have to have time for that to settle, for that to integrate into your consciousness, into your body, so that it can then grow and bloom into whatever it needs
Mm.
to be.
But there's that transformation process again,
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
right?
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
your transformation when you come to the community is not just a physical manifestation; it's
No.
the essence.
It is the essence. It is the essence of it. And I think what, is really important to me as a person, even if I'm not in quote unquote
Right.
session with somebody, is to always come into a space of energetic balance, energetic calmness. So
Mhm.
even if someone else may not have that same level, that my energy is one that they're like, okay, wait a minute, I can adjacently get some of this calmness. I
Yeah.
can adjacently get some balance to help them move toward a path toward
Mm.
balance and equilibrium, right?
Mhm.
Is my goal.
Well, I love that goal. I love
Mhm.
that goal. And where can someone find someone like you in our communities?
So, lots of places. Like for myself, I am online everywhere as Galanda B, and I have a website. I'm currently moving in between my main website and a secondary website, but it's www.galandab.com
Mhm.
and galandab.podia.com. So you can find me online, but you can often find energetic wherever your community spaces are, right?
Mhm.
Um, mo Google is your friend. You can absolutely look on Google, but you can also look toward your practitioners like yourself.
Yeah.
Just like a therapist has resources that they can
Mhm.
refer out, um, they might refer you to a Reiki person or to a coach. I, as a coach, I also have referrals because sometimes people come to coaches when they really need therapists.
Yes.
Okay,
And sometimes
let me
people
be
need a
clear.
therapist, but they need coaches.
Yes. And what I tell people too is it is good for you to have a team. It's not a either or situation,
Right.
right? You can have a team of people to
Mhm.
support you, and that's a
Yeah.
good thing. There's several of my clients who've come to me, and I'm like, look, you're crossing over into the territory that's outside of my
Mhm.
capacity. You need to get a therapist. And so you go head on to the therapist. We can still work together, but you find the balance. You might go to the therapist twice a month and you might come to me once a month, right? So often people, I feel like they think they need one or the other.
Right.
And really, I'm a team person. Let's work together. How can I help you,
You said it
with
again because
something?
people think that it's one or the other and they have to choose. And we'll say, no, you
Mhm.
can have best of both worlds.
You definitely can have the best of both worlds and realize I one of the main things that I do as a coach, or if somebody is seeking out coaching from me, is I really make sure I have a conversation with them about the difference between therapy and coaching. And I like to stress this, especially as a community healer, because for many, this line is blurred. It is not blurred for me. Okay.
Mm.
There for me as a coach, I can help you where you are now move toward a goal moving forward.
Right.
These issues that you have in the past are outside of my realm. You need a professional therapeutic person to help you, one, understand why those things happen, and two, maybe help you on the path to undo those patterns for that. I do not do that as a coach. So I like to really make sure that people understand that if you have something that you're moving toward, someplace, something out here you're trying to work toward, as a coach, I can help you with that, whether it be emotional or not. If I detect that you got some residual stuff, I'm
Right.
gonna send you to the therapist.
Right. So if it's trauma based or something
if
that's heavier, yeah.
if it's whatever, when the discussion turns to, well, I'm like this because of this, that's outside of a coach's
Good.
purview,
Right.
right? Um, and so I like to stress this, especially in community spaces, because I feel I might get in trouble for this, but I feel like there's a lot of coaches who overstep their bounds and they are advising people who really need therapeutic support outside of coaching support. So, in addition to that, in addition to the kind of Google, um, I often find other practitioners, community healers, in garden spaces, right? That's my other love that I just love so much is gardening and herbal support. So even if you're not a garden person per se, if you go to events that are garden related, you often find people who are community
Yeah.
healers in some way
Hmm.
because we all kind of, hang out
Yeah.
in those kind of spaces.
Yeah.
If you have a community center, oftentimes you can find people who, if it's not them, they will refer you to someone that they know as well.
It's that connection, right?
It
Yeah.
is. And I think at a grassroots level, many of us tend to kind of hang out together. So
Yeah.
even if it's not us, we're happy to refer you to someone else. Sound for example, I don't do sound healing in terms of the bowls and things like that, right?
Mhm.
But I know a couple of people. So if somebody say, "Hey, I really enjoyed a sound healing session," I got you. I got two, three people I can refer you to right off the bat. If someone says, "Hey, I think I might need a therapist," I have a list on my website that, okay, here's some, if you're not sure where to go to start to look for a therapist, you can go here. Um, if you live in an area different than me and you might want a Reiki practitioner because you want someone in person as opposed to a distance session, then I make sure that I continue to connect with other practitioners so that we can support people where they need it.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful communal experience.
Absolutely.
Where one person doesn't serve every need.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
And we
Hmm.
see the connections not as competition, but as a
Oh
means to an
no,
end of hailing our communities that really do
absolutely.
need it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because we want everyone to be well. We
Yeah.
want to uplift everybody.
Yeah.
And it's it's a lot of ego to think that you can do it all. Like,
Mhm.
uh,
Exactly.
that's just not, no.
No,
Mm-mm.
no.
It's just
And
not.
and that's when you know that's ego, when you think, "I can do
It
whatever."
is.
No, there's a
Mhm.
limitation to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, this is kind of um part of the yoga training, right? In terms, and you think of the glaciers and that you
Mhm.
think your ego can do it all.
Right,
And
right.
that I myself personally as a practitioner, I can't continue to grow and support if I think I'm all encompassing,
Right,
right? I'm just not going to be able to support people in the way that they need it,
right.
right?
Mhm.
Because I am putting my perceived worth above what they actually need.
Mm. And there's
Mhm.
the moral standards, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
moral
yeah.
standards, you know.
And the level of consciousness and awareness that I love that I'm hearing from you, right? It's something
Yeah.
that you find with community healers. There's the awareness.
Yes,
That,
definitely awareness. And I
yeah.
think too, the foundation of a lot of the programs and practices that I share with people is based in mindfulness. And for
Mm.
me, mindfulness, is the gateway to all the other stuff, right?
Right.
It is the way that you can learn to work towards meditation. It's the
Mhm.
way that you can work towards being more focused in your studies. So, and it's something that you can do without any additional tools, right? Because oftentimes you hear about programs where you got to buy this and you got
Mhm.
to buy that. You got to go here and go there. And in my opinion, mindfulness is a practice. It's simple, but not easy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But you can practice it in so many different ways that after a while it becomes habit. And then
Mhm.
you can move it, those levels, right? Okay, I feel like I feel confident in this level and I can move on to the next. And so I think with community workers, we're very mindful of the populations that we're trying to serve,
Mhm.
and two, the capabilities of what we have to give them, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why
Absolutely.
it's pretty easy for us to refer out to other people. If somebody needs womb help, that's not me, but
Right.
I know somebody for you,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I want you to be well in that.
Love it. It
Mhm.
goes back to that old saying, it takes a village.
Absolutely. That
Right?
is, I am 1,000%.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
It takes a
Uh,
village.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
I love that there's that communal approach. It takes a village, and I am my brother's keeper.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, if a person is operating in a way that is very independent, and they don't have relationships, I'm wondering, well, why not? Like,
Hmm.
what's going on with that?
Yeah.
What is the backstory of that? I'm not judging them, but I am approaching it with a curious mind
Hmm.
to understand and see, if that's something that could work for me or somebody I refer to or not.
Hmm.
I just know that the way that I tend to work and that I have found successful for others is to be community and communal support.
Hmm.
I'm with working with folks.
Yeah.
That's going to be my preference every time. Folks say, "Oh, well, why don't you have a summit?" Well, there's 1,000 people having summits. Why don't I just help them on their summit? I don't have to have my own,
Preach, preach, preach. Oh,
right?
oh, yes.
Well, why don't you start a nonprofit? It's a gazillion nonprofits. Somebody out here could use your expertise, your support,
Mhm.
your services. So why not support what's already in place
Yes.
instead of creating something else? And again, that for me, it feels like it comes back to ego. It's mine,
Yes.
right? In my opinion, healing is not mine. It's for everybody.
Here you go.
So I don't. me personally, and this I hope people aren't offended, be like, well, I created my summit. Okay, I'm glad for you. And
Mhm.
if you are led to do that,
Yes.
I'm going to support you in that. But for Galanda, my purpose and how I show up in the world, it's very unlikely you're going to ever see a Galanda Bee summit.
Right.
because
And
I
that's
just
okay.
Yeah, because I just feel like there's enough people out here who are doing good work that
Yes.
could use support with that work.
Yep. Mhm.
And I'd rather use my energy to support something that they've already feel led to do. I have zero ego in that it's got to be mine. Like I just
Love that.
part of the way that I
Yeah.
personally function.
We all have different journeys and different gifts.
Yeah.
Right. So I love it when people have conferences or summits. I'm like, great, I can refer to you.
Hmm.
I can send people your way,
Absolutely.
but that's not my journey. My
Absolutely.
journey is this, is doing the individual one-on-ones, is
Hmm.
doing maybe small groups, but not something big. But I'm
Yeah.
the biggest cheerleader for people who do that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, just she's also a business owner, but she's at the place where she works with people who have like a global vision. She's like kind of the higher,
Yes.
wider view, and that's what she's good at. I'm good with people who need to work on getting the task done, getting the minutia done, getting
Mhm.
moving through.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people don't understand or realize where they fall to be able to help those people.
Mhm.
I'm not a I don't want to work with the people who got the big ideas. I'm okay with the person who needs a handhold
Mhm.
to get from here to there. And she's the person that's up here helping them form and their vision and get
Mhm.
it together.
Yeah.
So I think that even as a community healer, part of the work that we have to do is understanding how we function best,
Yes.
and work within that
Yes.
self contained or constrainment of
Mhm.
how do you work best and work that,
Yes.
and then refer out everything else.
Yes.
And with
Especially
the
in
work,
relation to the community needs and the individuals in the community. Because
mhm,
everyone does need the same thing.
everyone does it. And that's
Yeah.
something even I had to learn, because I'm like, oh, I'm a coach. I can help everybody.
Right.
It doesn't matter if they're young, they're old, they're man or
Right.
woman. I could help everybody. I can. However, I'm most impactful with middle-aged women, right? Sure, I could help out young adult women.
Mhm.
I could help out a man, but I am most impactful to middle-aged women because I understand a lot of their perspective.
Right.
Um, I can relate and understand a lot of the situations that they are managing, and I can hold space for that. I am
Mm.
not a 23-year-old. What they talking about, I can listen,
Right.
but I'm not going to be able to relate in the same way, right? So my audience are middle-aged professional women
Wow.
because that's who I can make the most impact with, because I understand their pain points
Right.
and I can hold the space and provide some guidance, or walk, we can walk arm in arm as we walk through some of these things. So I think
Mhm.
as a community person, you really got to hone in on what it is. Like I have a friend, she works with young women. Whenever something that has to do with young women, I'm sending folks her name.
Right.
It's not gonna be me. Have I worked
Mhm.
with young people? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did I enjoy it? I did. But that's not really where I'm the most impactful. So I think that
100%.
as a community healer, you have to also do a lot of self introspection on
Wow.
the area where you are
Yeah.
best in, and stick to that and not be drawn into I can help everybody.
Yeah. And I love that. That requires a level of introspection and
Mhm.
reflection and truth
Yes.
telling about who you are and what your limits are.
Mhm.
Because
For
we all have
sure.
limits. And we're able to then model for our our clients, our community of what it means to not be everything to everyone.
Yes.
One thing that burns us out is that we're over functioning. We're in so many different roles, and we don't get to be just the self
Absolutely.
person.
It just the person, just the self.
Yeah,
That time for introspection and reflection are components of the integration that's necessary. And it's
absolutely.
one of the areas that I really emphasize with people that I work with is that you have to allow time for integration.
Absolutely.
You can't say, okay, we live in a society that's very regurgitating, right? I
Hmm.
told you this, give it back. I told you this,
Good.
give it back.
Right.
But to be emotionally and mentally well, you need more time to process that. Like you just can't get it and give it back. So when I'm working with people, we're not doing new stuff every week.
Right.
You're if middle most of the clients or types of clients that I have are likely still working. They likely have some children that they have to care for. It could be a large age range at this point, right? It could be from middle school to college, but you
Right.
still are caring for
Yep.
children. Many people have a partner as well. So that's three things right there outside of yourself that is taking your attention. And then most women are putting themselves at the bottom
Yep.
of that list of the folks, right? But what I tell them is, how do you expect to continue to be supportive? It's the how can you pour from an empty cup? That's basically what it comes down to.
Woo! Say that again for people who didn't hear it.
How can you pour from an empty cup? You
Yep.
have to allow yourself the integration of these things.
Yep.
And part of that integration helps to fill you up so that you can then, one, fortify yourself in order to be of support to others.
Absolutely.
There's been some opportunities where someone else could live in my space with me,
Hmm.
and I had to tell them no. And they were very upset about it. They was like, "I don't understand why I can't just stay with you because I need my space to refortify so that all the other stuff that you need, I can do. If you live here
Lovely.
with me, I'm not going to be able to do those other things." I'm very
Mm.
clear on that. The things that people rely on you for, if I have a person living in my space with me, my current space, I'm not going to be able to do that,
But it
right?
goes back to what I love is that you're talking about boundaries, right?
Boundaries,
Knowing your
right?
own limits and then creating boundaries with other people so that you could
Yes.
pour into that cup once you're refilled.
And please, can you tell can you as a therapist explain to the people the difference between boundaries and rules? Because I often see this, but they're like, "How you know?" Let the expert take. Can you tell these folks the difference between
So
a
your
boundary and a
boundaries are
rule?
your limits. Are your
Mhm.
limits. It
Mhm.
lets people know where you begin and where they end, right?
Mhm.
It really
Mhm.
defines who you are, what
Mhm.
you like, what you want, and what you don't want for
Mhm.
yourself. It
Mhm.
lets people have an awareness
Mhm.
of what's important for you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
In relation to what are your comforts, what are your
Mhm.
likes, what wounds you, right?
Mhm.
Rules are a set of laws or doctrines that create rules for how people should behave.
Mhm.
Right? Like there's a rule of you drive 50 miles per hour. It's a
Mhm.
rule about how fast you should go.
Mhm.
Right? Rules can help create boundaries with you. So there could be a rule that you can't call me out of my name.
Mhm.
That's a rule. And that rule helps create a boundary for you so that when people are speaking to you, they know the rule of how to operate with you.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, that's a good example. The rule is, uh, I don't want you calling me out my name.
Right.
My boundary is when you do, I'm not going to deal with you anymore.
There's a consequence.
There's a consequence to it.
The
So you
consequence.
broke the rule,
Yep.
right? Because the rule applies to you.
Right.
How I respond or reply to that is my boundary. If I have said you're not going to do this, then I then make the choice to whatever that choice is going to be because you
Yes.
broke that rule.
Mhm.
And I think as a person who works to support other people, that it's very important to have a clear sense of boundaries. Are we
Absolutely.
perfect people? No. Are we, you know, everybody is a work in progress,
Absolutely.
you know? And I've heard in some circles where people say, well, how can you help people and you still trying to get yourself together? Well, to some degree, maybe.
Hmm.
However, just because a person is having challenges in some area does not mean that they don't have the breath to be able to help a person in another area,
Absolutely.
right? And also, I think what people don't understand is even if a person is having challenges in another area, part of their healing might be helping other people.
Absolutely. And we're always in a state of evolving. We're not finished.
Absolutely.
You'll be evolving till you take
Absolutely.
your last breath. You're
Exactly.
transforming until you take your last breath. So
Exactly.
no one lives in a state of completion or perfection.
Absolutely.
We're always
Absolutely.
evolving.
The
Yeah.
only inevitable is change. And if you are challenged by change, you have difficulty with change, then life is going to be more difficult for
Yeah.
you. And perhaps you should see somebody such as our dear Candice here
Yes.
to help you understand why you're having the difficulty with
Yes.
change. Life becomes so much easier when you learn the
Yes.
tools for you to manage change. Everybody's tool set is different,
Hmm.
but understanding that you can't avoid it. So you might as well learn some ways to go with
Yes.
it, to flow with it, to
Absolutely.
manage it. I
Absolutely.
think it's really important because, like you
Yeah.
said, we're ever evolving. It's not
Absolutely.
even day by day; it's moment by moment.
Yeah. But also, what's beautiful about you is they get to learn how to manage the change, the transformation, and the
Yes,
energy that gets kicked up. Right?
yes,
There's certain lot of energy that comes up when we get
yes.
activated.
Yes, I
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about a Reiki practice is that it does shift your energy, your subtle energy bodies that your conscious mind may not
Mhm.
understand, but your subconscious mind does. So, a Reiki practice, in addition to having a coach, so you have the Reiki for the subtle body,
Mhm.
and then you have coaching for your active body,
Yes.
right? Your active mind. And then you might have a therapist for that shadow part and some of
Mhm.
your active mind.
Yes.
All of things work concurrently together to help elevate you
Absolutely.
from whatever the place is that is making you feel stuck or
Yep.
uncomfortable or not well, right? And it's a process,
Yes.
right? This is another thing that I think it's important when working with either a professional mental health support or with
Mhm.
a coach or a Reiki practitioner. The practices that we share with people are not instant. This is not an instant gratification sort of situation. This is a commitment
Yeah.
to small step improvement that can be long lasting
I love
for your mind, for your body, that you are saying, I am making a commitment to this change,
that.
and I don't know exactly when the shift is going to happen, but I know it will happen. And with that mindset and these other practices, it is always changing. It's always
Absolutely.
shifting toward that goal. So I think that's really important that people understand that um, it's a process. And I think more recently, like in the last couple years, people are understanding more that there's no instant. There's nothing instant.
No. No.
There's the possibility that you have a Reiki session and you feel exceptionally different
Mhm.
afterwards, and you may have a Reiki session and don't feel nothing right afterwards.
Mhm.
But then a week later, you're like, wait a minute, I'm
Yep.
feeling something else. But I think even the understanding that we're ever evolving, as you said,
Mhm.
and that these things are changing regularly in our favor is really
Yes.
important
Mhm.
to understand, and why more people are going to community healers, right? Not to say, like I've already said, I'm a team person. It
Right.
can't be all one way or the other. There are some
Mhm.
very positive things about Western medicine and Western practitioners and foundational concepts that are extremely helpful,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right? And it's a time and a place for all the things. If I break my leg, I'm not going to a community healer. I'm going to somebody who can set my bones straight again,
Right.
right? But if I'm just feeling a little slightly off, I don't feel all the way like, extreme in any way, I might go to talk to somebody, say, hey, I'm trying to work toward this, but I'm not quite
Right.
getting there, right?
Mhm.
It's a very different path to take.
Yeah. I think that with COVID, one of the things we got to see the health disparities. That
Hmm.
we don't always have clinical healers in our communities.
This is
But
true.
what we do have are community healers. And
Yes.
people will say, I don't know if I want to take medication.
Hmm.
I want to work on my breath. I
Hmm.
want to work on my energy. I
Hmm.
want to work on transforming
Hmm.
without being reliant upon something that's not natural.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that's when someone they come to a healer like you.
Yes, they
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
But we still have to have really conversations because people want to just stop their Western medicine,
right. And we don't
which
want that.
and we don't want that. And I have advised against that
Right,
multiple times.
right.
Um, and we also, if you're a person who is looking for a community healer, excuse my kitty cat there, um, I would offer to you to also ask questions of that community healer the same way you would ask of a Western professional. They
Great
should
advice.
be asking you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. So, yes, I do Reiki and I'm a yoga teacher and a
Mhm.
coach, but I'm also a gardener. I also grow herbs. I also create teas and tinctures, for
Yes,
people. It's
yes.
something that I've done in the past. But I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and I ask them, "Okay, well, what other medications are you taking? And what doses?" And they said, "Oh, well, I went to such and such place to get some herbs and they never asked me that."
Mm, beautiful.
Not responsible. Just because it's natural does not mean that it is compatible
Right,
with what you're already taking or
right.
your body, right? There's even with yoga. Right?
Mhm.
Very restorative yoga practices are pretty much good for everybody.
Right.
But if you're going into a more physical practice and you have some medical or
Mhm.
biological
Right.
challenges, there are some poses that probably are not best in your favor.
Yep.
There's some contraindications. And if the person who is sharing this practice with you is not at least advising you, right?
Mhm.
To have an understanding of this, that's something you need to question.
Absolutely.
That is something
Absolutely.
you should not be taking any herb, any breath work, any yoga without really talking to the practitioner and maybe even your medical provider
Mhm.
about how does this fit with what I'm already doing in order to keep you safe
Yep.
physically as well as mentally. I'll give you an example. So, I had a friend who was diagnosed as experiencing depression. And I made them a tea mixture that included St. John's wort. Well, after I gave it to them, they did not tell me before, but after they told me that they were on antidepressants and which one. And I said,
Mm.
mm-mm, you cannot drink this tea
Right.
and be on this because it could lower your blood pressure to a level that's unsafe.
Right.
So while you're on this medication, this is not a good option for you, right? Over time, with their medical professionals' advisement,
Mhm.
they were no longer taking that prescription medication. And then I said, okay. Now you can begin to take this in small doses and make your way up. Because if they had taken it simultaneously, it could have been very physically
Yeah.
dangerous for them,
Yeah.
right? Even some of the breath practices can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important that whoever you have is being very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel, those folks out there who are seeking a community healer, if they're not asking you a lot of questions, you ask them a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because it might save
Volunteer
their
the
lives.
information. Yeah, volunteer the information. If they don't ask you about your medications, tell them,
Yeah.
"Hey, I take such and such. Is that okay with what you're talking about?"
Right.
So be very advocate for yourself and be very proactive with any individual practice or whatever you are to help yourself, because we need to you as a person need to be aware of that, and the practitioner, if they don't know, that's okay. Don't think that they're not good because they don't know.
Right.
But if they say, I don't know, but I'll find out, then you okay. Right? But
Great
to
advice.
just if they're not asking you a lot of questions, and really getting to know who you are and what
Mhm.
all of the things that make up, because even as a practitioner, I'm always learning, right?
Yeah.
When I went to yoga teacher training, there
Mhm.
was no trauma informed yoga at that time. We
Right.
was helping adjust people and touching them without asking them,
Right. Right.
and all of that sort of thing. But I've since learned
Mhm.
in additional training that could be uncomfortable for people,
It can be triggering.
and
Right.
very
Mm.
triggering. You need to make sure that you are getting consent
Yeah. Yeah.
from people. And so all of these things, that if you're a person seeking out, advocate for yourself. If someone touches you even if they're trying to assist you in a
Right.
way, let them know,
Mhm.
that's not it.
Right.
Let's not do that.
Right.
If they're offering you something and you're unsure of how it would work with what you're currently taking, ask them. If they don't have an answer and they don't offer to get the answer for you, then seek someone else out uh,
Mhm.
for
And
that
don't be afraid of
Don't be
offending them.
afraid.
Just go to advocate.
Listen, this is your health. This is
Absolutely.
You only get one body.
Yep.
You only get one mind.
Mhm.
You do what you need to do to keep this body and this mind as in the best shape possible. So, if I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being offended by someone asking me questions. Like that's just
Mhm.
that would just blow my mind.
Yeah.
But
And for a
I mean,
lot of people, there's a power differential. When you come to a
mhm,
provider, you see them as powerful. They come to help you.
yeah.
So they're afraid if they ask a question, and
Mhm,
this might be a cultural thing. If they ask a question, they're afraid it might be seen as being
mhm.
disrespectful, as
Yeah.
opposed to being curious or being an advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I am prayerful, wishful
yeah.
for everybody to feel confident in advocating for themselves and being curious to ask about whatever it is that they feel unsure about,
Mhm.
because it's just necessary.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
necessary. Yes, ma'am.
yeah. Because you matter, and your health matters. So
Absolutely.
I want you to really take heed what she's saying. Ask the questions. Even ask about their training. Ask the questions because you want to
Ask
make
the question.
sure that this person is knowledgeable
Hmm.
because they're leading you and they're facilitating you. And you
Hmm.
got to make sure you're in good hands.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the training, because this is something that has, come up lots of times.
Mhm,
Um, a lot of these cultural practices, or what people refer to as alternative
mhm,
practices, in more recent times have some training programs and some oversight to them. And there are some people who have been practicing who did not go through those programs. It does
mhm,
not mean that they are not necessarily qualified. But what I would say is, again, ask more questions, right? What's their lineage? Who taught them? Were they
mhm.
certified?
Yep,
How long did they practice? What did they have to go through? I
yep,
mean, I know yoga teachers who don't have your formal yoga teacher training, as in they didn't go through a quote unquote 200-hour program,
right.
but they worked with a teacher for 2 years. right? That's just as valid, but you
Yeah.
have to ask the questions.
Yes.
You have
And
to
yeah,
ask the questions.
absolutely. I love that.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. How
Yes.
can people reach you? And I want you to feature the book because you're also
Oh,
the
yes. Yes. So, speaking of COVID, right at the beginning of COVID, I had just contributed a chapter to this book, Awaken to Wellness.
Oh, I
It
love it.
was 11 authors and just wellness leaders talking about our different stories. And
Mm,
so my chapter in here was called Shift. Um, and I still use that kind of, I have some acronyms for it in some of my program, but, and it talked about my personal journey as I moved from being a partnered person to an unpartnered person. That's my
mm,
PC way of saying it, right? So that journey for me from being partnered to not partnered, and how yoga helped to shift and help me through that process. Not only yoga, but I also um, did a year, just a little bit over a year program to be certified as a mindfulness meditation teacher as well.
love
And
it.
it was a one-on-one program with a teacher where I worked with him and did a whole bunch of stuff during that time. So that was what my chapter is about. So I have this book. It's on my website, galandab.com.
Yes.
Um, I am selling it at a low, low price of $4.99
Oh,
plus
wonderful.
shipping. So I have that. Um, in the coming months, I have a group coaching program called Grace that's coming up. And that
Mm,
is for our, like I said, our middle aged menopausal lady friends. And in this program, we're working to improve our emotional awareness and increase our emotional resilience.
oh, I love that. Mm,
That is the main goal of the program. The group coaching program will include one live session per month, one recorded session per month, and a community. I'm still trying to, I have a community online where I think that's going to be the primary part for where anybody who's in the group coaching could ask questions to me, post different things. I'll be posting affirmations and things like that um, in the group coaching community, right?
mm,
So I have that coming up in a couple months. I also have an affirmations coloring book that I hope to finish
mm.
this month. It's actually two parts. An affirmations coloring book coming up and a seasonal journal.
Ooh, I love
Yes,
that. Oh, I
a
love that.
seasonal journal. Although I am not personally an astrologist of any type, however, I do use astrology in terms of my own personal workings. And
Mhm.
I find as a woman that the seasonal move is very impactful on me. I guess that's the nice way to put it. Um, And so I have a seasonal journal in progress. There is an electronic, like short, small version that's
Mhm.
available now, but I'm going to have a larger printed version that's going to be available soon. So the Grace is the group coaching program. Grace, I love acronyms. My background is also in IT, so I'm an acronym. I love a good acronym.
I love
And so Grace stands for guided discovery, resilience building, awareness expansion, curiosity cultivated, and enlightened actions.
boom. Love it.
So
Boom.
that's what we're going to be working on. And it looks like that may start in June or July. We're still working on that. But if you're interested, you can go to the other website,
Mhm.
galandab.podia.com, and you can sign up for the wait list for the Grace group coaching program.
Awesome.
Yep. So
Thank
that's
you.
that's what I have going on. Thank
You're
you.
You got a lot of amazing things going on. Thank
I
you for,
do.
you're so busy. Thank you for taking time to speak with us. And for those of you who would like to meet with me, my name is Candice Richardson Dickens. I'm the Dope Black Therapist. My
Yay.
website is CandiceRDickens.com. And I have started my restorative yoga. We start Sunday at 6:15 at the Revolve Wellness Center. So to sign up for that, go to coloroftraumaandhealing.com. Thank you so much, Delonda. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.